A day comes and a day goes, and you have to be able to say what happened. This says about Avram Avinu, Avram Zokin, Baba Yomim. Hashem Beidech has Avram Bakel, that by Avram Avinu had a cheshbon of every single day. As they state in Zoyar. When we were kids, I tell you the same speeches over and over again. When we went to Cheder, they translated Baba Yomim gegangen in the tag. He went in the days. It's such a useless translation. Baba Yomim doesn't mean he went in the days, he went with the days. Mit the tag. He took every day along. If you'd ask Avraham Avinu, he lived 175 years, what happened each day of his life? And he had an answer. A good one. A useful one. Each day has its job. So besides for the fact that we need to get everything done, we need to have a cheshbon of every day and every minute. Like the Rebbe said more than once, that there's a maimer achochom. It's not a maimer chazal, it's a maimer achochom. Odom doyeg al ibud domo ve'eni doyeg al ibud yomov. I heard it from the Rebbe. Rebbe Fried made a song afterwards. Odom doyeg al ibud domo ve'eni doyeg al ibud yomov. People worry about the loss of their money, and they don't worry about the loss of their days, even though dom of chezim yom of einem chezim. The money you can get back, the days you cannot get back. So that's why he sits in the Zeit. Anyway, so today is a day, and it's Yud Tammuz, Asara B'Tammuz. And as I mentioned to you a number of times, in the year Tov Reish Pei Zayin, when the Frierdiker Rebbe was released, was arrested and released from prison, and it set in motion the Hishtalshlus, which links Mamish to today, to us being here in Beis Chayenu in 770, was the same exact Kviyas. Gimel Tammuz was on a Sunday, Pashas Chukas, like it is this year. Gimel Tammuz was Sunday, Pashas Chukas. And Yud Beis Tammuz was in Pashas Balak. I'm almost positive. I should look again, but I'm almost positive. Could be with Pinchas, but I think it was Balak. So he was still in Kastramah, he was still in his exile. But his life was out of danger. His life was out of danger. So I'm just going to say a vart, a Yud Beis Tammuz dik a vart. It's the Mitzvah Tuesday, we'll talk about Yud Beis Tammuz. Tuesday is Yud Beis Tammuz itself, so we'll verbring about Yud Beis Tammuz. But to say a vart about Yud Beis Tammuz, the Frierdiker Rebbe was in jail for 18 and a half days. And I just yesterday, I picked up a sikha, I was looking for something else, and I found the Rebbe, our Rebbe, describing in a sikha how they beat the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Rebbe described, wie mit dem geschlagen. Einmal, zweimal, dreimal, 3 times. And at one point, one of the incarcerators came in and he begged the Frierdiker Rebbe mercy. He refused to stand. He refused to stand. And there was a policy in the prisons that when you're given an official piece of news, so he says, Rebbe, me werd geschlagen. He couldn't watch them beat. So the Rebbe said, no. So he hit him a 3rd time, Kovalov, I think his name was, and then he says to the Rebbe in Russian, we're gonna destroy you, something to that effect. He was so frustrated by the Rebbe's insolence, his refusal to cooperate, and the Rebbe didn't answer in Russian, he answered in Yiddish. Men vedzen ver vemen. We'll see who's gonna destroy whom, who will defeat whom. So in desperation, they couldn't hit him anymore. They told him to come into the office. No, to come into the office. So this wasn't an act of respect. This was an instruction. He was already standing, and they told him that he's free to go home for a few hours, and then they're going to send him off to Kastrama. But this was on Friday, the Chedish Tammuz, where it's going to require him to travel on Shabbos. So the Rebbe said to stay in jail till Sunday. And I'll be Allah, this was Mamish Mesiras Nefesh Lepel. This Kiddush Hashem for Shmini Shabbos. Because in those 48 hours, a lot of things could have happened. And the Rebbe, the Sikh and the Kutasichis, where the Rebbe asks the question, Api Allah, how are you allowed to be Mesa Nefesh for Shabbos? It's not the 3 Avedas. And the Rebbe answers an interesting answer. And you have a similar Sikh from the Rebbe in Chayisar and in Beis about Avraham Avinu, that a Rebbe's whole life is Yiddishkeit. If you take away Yiddishkeit, there's nothing left. So the union of Pikuach Nefesh, Deicha Kol HaTeira Kulach, Alei Lol of Shabbos Achas, you have to desecrate a Shabbos to keep many Shabbos by a Rebbe, it doesn't work because there's no life outside of it. That's what the Rebbe spoke. I don't know if you remember the Sikha. We learned it here years ago. That Avraham Avinu gave away all of his money to Yitzchak. Everything he owned, he gave to Yitzchak. Happy Allah, you're not allowed to do that. Because then you become a dependent. Then you become dependent on the call. So the Rebbe answers a nigle. The Avraham's whole Metzias was Achtas Hashem, was teaching the world about the Eibishter and Chesed and Chinuch. And that was invested in Yitzchak. So b'meile taka al pi halacha, a person is not allowed to give away everything he owns to somebody else because then he becomes a dependent. But when you give everything you own away to your inyan, that's a different halacha. So Avraham was allowed to give away all of his wealth to Yitzchak because that was the Metzias of Avraham Avinu, not the physical person Yitzchak. Not the fact that he was his biological son. But the fact that he was Yitzav Ezbonav Ezbeisa, he was continuing Avraham Avinu's purpose. And the same is true by Rebbe, by Nasi Yisrael B'chlal, and by the Friedrich Rebbe particularly. The Rebbe was Mesa Nefesh for Shabbos, even though you're not allowed to be Alocha. Because without Shabbos there's no Rebbe. You know, the Maish with the Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe was sitting in jail. And he refused to eat. So one of the Goyim, who was a Malumet, said to him, Rebbe, if you're not going to eat, you're going to die. If you're going to die, you're going to Ma'avadas Meladas. You're taking your own life. And the Gemara says, Ma'avadas Meladas, a person takes his own life, it's not the three Avedas. And the Alter Rebbe says, maybe I lose my Elam Haba, but I'm not going to eat today. Because that's the Metzias. By a Rebbe, that's the Metzias of the Rebbe. Avas Hashem, Yiras Hashem, and Emunas Hashem. Like it says in Tanya. So we stayed in jail till Sunday. Sunday went home for 3 hours. Atzabailta, not Mazik. I want you to know. The Friedrich Rebbe, you watch the film. There's a little bit of a film of the Rebbe coming to America. He looks gorgeous. There's a video of him getting off the ship. There is a second video of him in the Rabbi party they made from a Fabrengen in the Kramer's house. Looks gorgeous. He stands upright. Huh? No. The first time.
Oh, 1929.
Yeah. He looks gorgeous. The Rebbe, that walking straight was not simple. His body was shattered, was broken. He was a Rebbe. He made himself look good, but he didn't feel good. I heard from a Yid, unfortunately he's in Elam HaEmes, Elam Haba. His name was Tzvi Greenwald. Tzvi was a beautiful Jew. Mamish, you knew him from Kfar Chabad. Tzvi gave a very special person. He's one of those Jews, if you would read the phone book, it would be interesting. He was just a special person. He was one of a kind. His father met the Friedrich Rebbe in 1929. How did he meet the Friedrich Rebbe? He was living in exile. He was already married with children. He was young. He was in his late 20s, early 30s. And he was well-to-do. He was importing from Europe, that's Israel, whatever, food stuff. And he made a nice panos. Living in Yerushalayim, in a big dira, in a big apartment by those standards, mit Kinderlach, panos gehat, frum is gewesen. He wasn't at all Chabad. He walks out the window and he sees the Friedrich Rebbe walking with an entourage, with 15 or 20 people. When the Friedrich Rebbe came to Eretz Yisrael, he was the hero of Eretz Yisrael. He was the hero of the Jewish world. The Friedrich Rebbe defeated Stalin, Yamach Shmei V'Zachrei. And he sees the Rebbe, but he understood that the Rebbe was a busy man and so many people wanted his attention. So he figured, okay, I'm seeing the Rebbe from the window, Zeichet Gut. But he sees that one of the members in the group is holding a chair. And they walked up to one of the Sha'arim, one of the entrances to Yerushalayim, and the chair was brought forward and the Rebbe sat down. Because the Friedrich Rebbe, this was literally a month before he went to America, 2 months. It was the same year. This was in Tammuz of, and he was in America Elul. He would walk 100 paces or 200 paces, he had to rest. That was the effect that they had on his goof. So this Greenwald's looking out the window, and he sees the Rebbe sit down on a chair. So he says, I know the Rebbe is very busy, but if he's parked here, I might as well run over. So he ran out of his apartment. He ran over to the Friedrich Rebbe, and he asked the Friedrich Rebbe for a bracha. And the Friedrich Rebbe says to him, are you married? He says, yeah. Do you have children? He says, yeah. Panos you have? He says, yeah. So what kind of bracha do you need? Hostachalas. Bone, chayim, zene, reviche. And he's living in Eretz HaKodesh, in Yerushalayim, here HaKodesh. What could be possibly better? So he hesitated. I don't know if he hesitated, but he told the Rebbe he had no brachas to ask. The Rebbe told him, Hostachalas, I'm asking a bracha that all my children should be your chassidim. All my children. And the Rebbe takes a look at him. Are you sure? Are you sure? This is Kegalachte. He says, I'm sure. And that's exactly how it played out. Anyway, but the Rebbe was broke. I'm telling this story because I heard it from him. And obviously heard it from his father. And your father didn't have to hear it from anybody. It happened to him. And he saw, it was 2 years after. Peites, it was 2 years after the arrest. He saw how broken that goof was. The goof, the Rebbe Rayat's goof was zerbrochen of shticken. And then of course inside the Gimel, a few years after, 1933, it started to show Mami. It started to show itself. The paralysis set in and all the other tzaras never. But in any case, so Yud Tammuz, the Rebbe was still fashikt in Kastrama. So I wanted to say, I'm talking around and around. The Nekuda is, he was still in Kastrama. He took with him 2 Chassidim and a Chassidus there. He took Ramchol Dvorkin and he took Rabbi L'chaim Altes. They were very big Mukusharim. They were very different personalities. They were very big Chassidim. The Rebbe once described by Fabrengen that when they got the news that the Rebbe was free, each of the Chassidim had a different reaction. One of them became very excited, the other one went mute. And the Rebbe had to calm one of them down because he thought, the Rebbe had feeling about to personally calm down this Chassid because he was afraid that the reaction to the news of the Rebbe's Gula would hurt his health. And the Chassidus there was the Rebbe Tzimchaya Mushke. He took along his middle daughter, the Rebbe Tzimchaya Mushke. And but while he was in Kastrama, so first of all he opened up a cheder. There were Yidden in Kastrama. He lived in the house of the Sheikhet. So he opened up a cheder. Rebbe L'chaim opened up a shtickle cheder. And second of all, this is one of the tragic stories. The Gemara says the koyach of the words of a tzaddik. The Frierdiker Rebbe looked at his hands and he said to L'chaim, "As ich kann nicht schreiben wegen Tashba, auf was darf ich haben in der Hand? If I cannot write about Teneke Shel Beis Rab, if I can't write letters to people about teaching Yiddish, why do I need hands? You know, a word from a Rebbe, jeder Wort. A Rebbe says something, and b'chlal people's words have power. And by tzaddikim, by tzedkonies, by noshim gedelim, there's a lashon in Shas. Kasha yeitzei hashil, something with a fnei hashalit. I forgot the lashon, but the teichen is you say something, you didn't really mean it, but you said it. Over the roof come to off. And I was like, it's a few times in Shas you have such an expression that when you say, you have to be careful with words. You have to be careful. I have a relative who told me that the Rabbi of the Masmid had a son who would learn Chassidus. So Rabbi of the Masmid that gesagt, if you're not going to learn Chassidus, I don't need you. The guy got sick. He almost died. Because he gelaufen zum Friedinger Rebbe. Und die beten a Bracha von der Fuhrschleime. And the Friedinger Rebbe said, Itche, a zweite Mal soll sich hieten mit dem Beul. Itche, next time be careful with your mouth, you understand? And when the Rebbe said, was hat in the hand, the Rebbe understood the power of his words. He understood the power, but he said it. That's Mesiras Nefesh. It's a mindset. It's a mohus. It's a person. So today, Tammuz was still the Meiser. And Tuesday he was told that he's free, and Wednesday he was told officially that he's free. And okay, aber mevat of the Gola Shleima, und medav haben the Gola mitzvah va Shleima. And anything less than that is nonsense. It's not complicated. It's a zuckerke. It's a sugar-coated candy. So Rabbi Sai, we're holding on page Chav Dalet Amud Aleph, Daf Chav Dalet Amud Aleph, which means page 47. Yeah, I'm going to get that in English and Amud. Yeah, so Gimel page 46. How many lines from the top? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're 7 lines into the page. Now, I think it's 7. If I'm wrong, it's 8. The line that begins with the word delace. You see the word delace? It's 7 lines from the top or 8 lines from the top? 8. It's 8 lines from the top. Delace machshav v'tfisa bekal v'lochein. This is where we're holding. Now, we've been going very slow this Pedic. Maybe a little too slow. In other words, we could have done what we did in one class less than we did it. It's not like we're going much slower than we should, but we had so many interruptions. But the Nekuda is, number one, we're dealing with a person who can't learn, who can't think, and can't feel. Or he can't do all three together. Which means the technique, the method, the eitzah of Beinani, of Moyach Shalit Alalei, the suggestion that you could be a Beinani by using your mind to educate your heart, and then your heart will teach your body how to behave. And there are some times that you're a melech, that you're a king over your body, which means your body feels what you want. And sometimes you're a meishel, you're a shalat, you're a dictator over your body. And it's intermittent. When a Beinani davens, he's a melech. When a Beinani is not davening, he's a meishel. But there's a balance between melucha and memshala, between being a king over the body who educates the body, and being dictating over the body who forces the body. But you sustain the level of Beinani through moyach. Shalit ala leiv. Shalit means to educate, and shalit means to control. But when you don't have moyach, and you don't have leiv, how are you supposed to be a Beinani? So the teretz is avamis teretz. Pintele. What's pintele? Yitz, we had a lot of conversations. First of all, it's a Yerushalayim Aviseinu, it's an inheritance from the Avis, because the Eibush gave the Avis Amaton. It's not a gift to us, it's a gift to them. Okay, Zachu, Lahamshich Neim Achareim Adelim Chol Nefesh Miyisrael. The Kedusha Shaba'ar Be'elim Esatzilus B'riya Yatziri Yasiyah. And there's two key words, or three key words. One key word is the word Kedusha. The second key word is the word Chochmah. And the third key word is the word Ein Seif. Every Yid has Kedusha. Kedusha means not I'm serving Hashem. I'm Dveikus, I'm connected to Hashem. Number two, Chochmah, I have the tool. That even though it's a tool, even though it's a vessel, the nature of this vessel is that it can hold infinity. Because it's an inside-out vessel. It's not a vessel of control. It's a vessel of surrender. And in Chochmah, by a Yid whose Neshama has a spark from Kedusha, the Ein Seif rests. And the Ein Seif, which a Yid has, is the basis for the union of Avamis Teres. Every Jew has a hidden love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that comes from the Eibishter, which requires no learning and no meditating and no feeling, doesn't require any conscious action. It's in the Neshama. The Eibishter put it there as a gift to the Avis. He gave us Kedusha and He gave us Chochmah, and therefore He gave us Ein Seif. And then they never concluded that there's two aspects to this Chochmah Shebenefesh, to this Ava Mesuteres, which is the Ein Seif, which rests in Chochmah Shebenefesh. And the two aspects are, number one, the way it is in Chochmah itself, and number two, the way it's Pasha B'chol Aguf Kulala Achayesek Meshekosa B'Chochmah Techaya B'Aleh. That the Chochmah doesn't stay only in the Chochmah, it gives life to the whole body, like it says in the Pasuk, Chochmah gives life to her host, to her owner, to her husband. You'll see in your Testament, Hashem. And then again in Chavdalet, the difference between the Chochmah, the way it's in Vayach HaChochmah, this Avamis Teres, this Pintaliyah, the way it is in Chochmah Shebenefesh, and this Chochmah, the way it's Mispasha B'chol Aguf Kula. You'll see, the Alter Rebbe is going to go back twice more, as far as I recall, and point out that there's two parts to this Avamis Teres, Kedusha, Chochmah, Ein Seif, which every Jew possesses. Number one, the way it is in the Chochmah Shebenefesh, in the brain itself. And number two, the way it's Mispasha B'chol Aguf Kula, but it radiates into the hands and to the feet and to the fingers and to the toes and the hair, skin and the nails. And there's going to be in Afkaminas practical differences in the Murus, in the definition of a Jew based on this, which of course is going to set us up to the ultimate discussion, how you could use the power of Mesiras Nefesh in your daily life to be a balabayas over yourself, to own, to master oneself, machshava, dibur u'ma'aseh, in thought, speech, and deed. Now, this is a review. We're moving on. Okay? We talked about who needs Avamis Teres. We talked about where we got Avamis Teres from. And we talked about where Avamis Teres lives. It lives in the Chochmah and in the Kedusha of a Yid. Now is the next thing. What does Avamis Teres do? And the Alter Rebbe is going to tell us two things. They're going to be spoken of intertwined. In other words, it's not like he's going to say one and then say the other. It's sort of like a mix. But I'm going to divide them up. I want to show you how they're two separate ideas. They're spoken about almost in the same words, but they're two separate ideas, and I want to dafke separate them for purposes of learning, of clarity. Okay? Let me repeat what I just said a second time. We've spoken who need Avamis Teres. We've spoken where we got Avamis Teres from. We've spoken where Avamis Teres lives. Now we have to find out what Avamis Teres is. What is it? And we're going to say two things. Number one, Emunah. Number two, Mesiras Nefesh. Or Mesiras Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem. We're ready to learn. Okay? 8 lines into the page. V'lachein. V'lachein. Because of the Avim Mesuteres that every Jew has in his Kedusha, in his Chochmah, Shabashayah, the Ein Sei Baruch Hu. Therefore, by a Yid, you have 2 characteristics. And by the way, you could say more. You could say more. But the Alter Rebbe says 2. Emunah and Mesiras Nefesh. Let's talk about Emunah first. Because of this, Kol Yisrael, all Jewish people, Afilu, Hanashim, Ami Haaretz. By the way, just in case you're insulted yet, Hanashim means the women and Ami Haaretz means the men. To the exclusion of the emissary, you understand? Hanashim, the women and the ignorant men. Kilo, all women are ignorant. Hazachain, all men are ignorant too. Hanashim, Ami Haaretz means women and men as it close to Chsidish Yidden, whether they're male or female, you understand? Hey, Ma'aminim Ba'Hashem, believe in the Eibishter. She'amuni l'maylam and adas v'asaga, faith is by definition beyond adas. I'm going to translate das as understanding. V'asaga, an intellectual reach. Because the Pasuk says, Ki pesi yamin l'chol dava. A fool believes everything. V'adam, and someone who's smart, or who thinks he's smart, or who is too smart for his own good, Yavin v'geimen needs to understand. A smart guy has to understand. The psychology of understanding is to control. You understand? You want to control. You want to be your own God. But a fool believes. Says the Rabbi got a secret for you. When it comes to the question of God, if you want to understand, there's no room for Him. And if there's room for Him, you have to surrender. The Eibush is above understanding and knowledge. No brain, no tool, no thought, no intellect can hold him. The human mind cannot understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu completely. HaKoil kipsoyim etzlei yizbarach. We're all fools next to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even the smartest people who ever lived. Who's the smartest guy? Shlomo Melech. Who's the smartest guy? Moshe Rabbeinu. Who's the smartest guy? Rabbi Akiva, yeah, and so on. The greatest Gedali Yisrael. When it comes to the Eibush, they're like, the Rebbe, I told you this many times. I saw this in the book, and it blew my mind. That the Rebbetzin Chayamushka, our Rebbetzin, was asked what she thought, what was the most outstanding characteristic of her husband, the Rebbe. And she said his Emunah. She didn't say his Ahavas Yisrael. She didn't say his Yiras Shamayim. She didn't say his Hasmadah. She didn't say his Midas Tevis. She didn't say his Shminas Hazman. She said his Emunah. And the Rebbe was outstanding in all those things. But the Rebbe Tzachai, she was a maiden. She was the Frierdiker Rebbe's daughter. She was the Rebbe Rashab's granddaughter. She was a big meminte. My husband's greatest attribute is Emunah. When it comes to the Eibishter, the biggest Chacham Gula Cohen used to say, you talk to the Rebbe about medicine, he sounds like a doctor. You're talking about the war, he sounds like a general. You talk about politics, you talk about the Eibishter, he sounds like a little boy. Farvos? Because he has it right. Lagabi HaKadosh Baruch Hu, since the Eibishter is L'mayla Mitam Vadas, beyond understanding, and nobody can understand him, Hakel Kipsoyim Etle Yizbarach, we're all like fools, Lagabi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Pasuk says, "Vani bad." I'm going to translate as empty, lady. I do not know. I am like an animal. Now it says Behemoth Lashon Rabbi, which is a pilpul, which have Chayde Pedig Mem Zayin, Mem Vav at the end. Behemoth Imach. I'm like an animal with you. But then it says, "Vani Talmid Imach." I'm constantly with you. If I'm bad, if I'm empty, if I'm an animal, how am I with you? So he says, "Kloima na punfakeh." This means to say, Shabazeh, from the fact, Shani Baru Be'emes, I'm empty, I'm like an animal, and that's why I'm constantly with you. The head is, the Navi is saying, if you want to be close to God, don't be smart, be simple. Because being smart is foolish when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Your brain is never going to get there. Letting go of your brain opens you up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Rebbe says, this is the first tuna, the first character trait, that Yidden, all of us, even Kal Shabakal Peish Yisrael, the most callous, the most indifferent, the most apathetic, the most unmoved, Yid has this. Because of Pintel, I want to tell you, I have a shir, you know who I'm talking about, with a Jew, you would call him modern Orthodox, of alle Frumen Yidden gesagt geworden sein modern Orthodox, who's a psychiatrist, he's a friend of mine. And we learn Tanya every week on Friday. That's Friday morning, I learn Tanya. So he tells me this week he has to be careful. He's what's called, what are they called? Doctor-client privilege. A Jew comes to see him. A from a Yid, mishpacha, wife, kids. This guy has been to Gehenna and back. His life has not been easy, but he found his way, and he's a from a Yid, and he says to him, everybody would envy my life. He says, but I think I don't have a pintel. I do it all. I have a wife, I have kids, I go through the motions, but I don't believe in anything. I have no connection to any of it. It absolutely doesn't touch me. So my doctor friend, who's modern Orthodox, says to him, and you know what I think? I think you have an incredible pintel. And I think, I forgot what word he used, but it's the very fact that you're bringing it up. So the guy starts to cry. A psychiatrist, a mashpia, verstehst? Er hat doch gemeint, Poshut. He touched him. What's the pshat? You scream, you don't have a pintel yid, but what you're screaming is, my lack of pintel yid makes me hungry because the pintel yid is there. I want to feel it. And a mashpia couldn't get it. A rov couldn't get it. His doctor, a doctor, a psychiater. Azay Getas. But every Jew has a pintel yid. So the first characteristic of the pintel yid is a mun. The second characteristic of pintel yid is Mesiris Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem. I'm going to get to Mesiris Nefesh next week. So our discussion today is about Amunah, okay? And I want to start with Goyim. I don't know if you're familiar with the Maimorim, but there's almost standard Maimorim that uses the same words. Maimorim of Matzah, Pesach. When you speak about the Amunah by a Goyim, Amunah by a Yid, Mashanilu Chachmei HaMechkar LaHasig, Yidden have it, the Amunah Pshut, and Sevav Kalam, Amin. There's a standard word. You know the code by the language, by the words. It says in Hasidus that there's a difference between a Yid and a Goy. That a Yid's Amunah is from Sevav Kalam, and a Goy's Amunah is from Malak Kalam. So before we get to Jews, let's talk about Goyim. And Faket, the reason I'm talking about this is because you have to understand that Amunah by a Goy is real. Amunah by a Goy is real. Goyim are human, they're not machines. They have a soul. They're in the Tzelem Elokim, Chav V'Adam Shniver B'Tzelem goes on Goyim, and every human being. The way the Maimer speaks is, a Goy believes in God because he has proof. So he only believes in the God for which he has proof. So when you talk about proof for God, talk about the question of proof for God, I haven't talked about this in a long time. There's two basic proofs. And years ago I used to talk about this a lot. Now it's been a very long time since I ever came to this topic. There's two basic proofs for God in creation. The first proof of God, the simpler proof of God, is order. You look at the world, you look at the universe, look at the solar system, look at the earth, look at living things. You marvel at the order. It's incredibly orderly. It's so organized. You take a grain of sand, one kernel of sand, the degree of order, the number of parts that the grain of sand entails. It's trillions of little tiny pieces that are so small that you can't even see them indirectly. That all have to fit together perfectly for that grain of sand to remain in Matthias. And this repeats itself. There's no words. What word can you say to how many times you have this order in one mountain? Allah has come on the whole earth. Allah, when you start talking about life, that's order on a whole nother level. Plants, animals, human beings. A person looks at the world, and of course there's a God. It's like the old story Rabbi Goldstein has on his records. The ink spelled over on the page, and the picture happened by mistake. Spontan. So the king comes in and he sees that there's a beautiful picture, and he says to the rabbi who made this picture, he says, what do you mean the ink spilled? And it happened by itself. And the king says, Nadein. That's impossible. So the rabbi says to the king, it's impossible for an ink to fall on a paper and make a drawing. And for this world could be by mistake. This is all a mistake. It's an undeniable proof that there's a God. It is. Now people hack a cup, they talk and talk and talk and talk, and they convince themselves that it's logical to say, it's more logical to say that it happened by mistake. And I don't want to waste my time with it. Thank God you don't have to waste the time with it. But this is the first proof. Now you must understand, this proof only proves that the world has a soul. That there's chomer, that there is matter, pieces, things, material, that someone organizes it to all different little organizations, all different chemical components, and then unity of different chemicals, and then you have Daimim, and then you have Tzemech, and then you have Chai, and then you have Medaber. But it doesn't speak to the creation of the Chomer itself, to the creation of the matter itself. There's a very good argument to say that the Chomer, Aristotle, he believed in God and he was an Avocatus. That's a special chush to believe in God and be a heretic, but that you have to be as smart as Aristotle. He believed in God. He believed that the universe is not by mistake. But he didn't believe in Yesh Mayayin, you understand? He didn't believe that the creation was made from no creation, that there was once no universe, there was no time, space, matter. There was nothing. And then it came into being. He believed that the time, space, matter always existed. And that God is the soul of the universe. Like the goof has a neshama. But the goof is daimon, the body is nothing. Now what's wrong with this level of proof is, if you believe only in the first proof, that the Eibishter creates order in the pre-existing primordial matter, so then it doesn't have to be b'chol rega v'rega. You see, it doesn't have to be every second. He makes it once, and he leaves it alone. The beginning of the second chapter of Shara Yichud Ramuna, you take clay, you make it into a dish, you put it into a kiln, you bake it, it's hard, it's firm, it's tough, you put it on a shelf and you go off into the market, then you're gone. So if you have only the first proof for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the Eibishter gives order to the universe, and you don't have the second proof, which is, you don't believe in the second proof, which is Yesh Me'ayin, then you could believe in God and at the same time believe that He's not involved. But that's what Aristotle believed. He believed there's a creator, but he believed that the creator is far away. So he believed in Hashem and denied in Shita Hashgacha Pratis, denied in Shita Nevuah, Shakel Menabe is Bnei Ha'ad, the God who talks to man. He denied in Shita the possibility for miracles, and he even denied in Shita the idea of Yediyah. He denied that God even knows what's going on here. So he believed in Hashem, and he made Hashem useless, gunished. Someone created us, and now I can do whatever I want, and he does. Not only he doesn't care, he doesn't even know what's in the matter. That's why there's a second proof, and this is more equivocal. This is where the Rambam argues at Aristotle. The big machlokes between the Rambam and Aristotle. Rabbi Mezokta, the Rambam gave in the sheet of Aristai. The Rambam brings Aristotle's philosophy, but disagrees with him on every single issue. Yesh Me'ayin. The big idea in Meir and Nevuchim is Yesh Me'ayin, no question about it. And the Rambam turns himself into a pretzel to defend the idea of Yesh Me'ayin. Yesh Me'ayin means that not only is there a proof that there's a God because there's order in the world, there's a proof that there's a God because the very matter of the world exists. Nothing exists forever. Nothing exists. How did the material get it? It was always here. How? So there's a creator. And if you ever study Meir Nevuchim, and I'm not saying you should, the Rambam Matatzech, the Rambam goes out, it works very, very hard to argue the case for Yesh Me'ayin. And he argues it. And the Alter Rebbe begins the Tanya where the Rambam finishes. You understand? The Rambam finishes his big chiddush, his disagreement on his time. Is that not there's one proof of God, there's two. Number one, the Eibishter is the neshama of the universe. Number two, the Eibishter creates the world every second. It creates the world from a non-existence into an existence. And then after you have the Rambam, you have the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe says that Yesh Me'ayin has to be b'chol rega v'rega. Every instant. And automatically, Hashgacha Pratis becomes a necessity. Nevuah becomes a necessity. Nisim becomes a necessity. And Yediyah becomes a necessity. How could the Eibishter be creating the world every instant, nothing into something, and you say there are no miracles? It's the same miracle. Each event of creation is a nest. The fact it doesn't look to you like a nest because it happened the same as the second before is your blindness, my blindness, our blindness. So these are the two proofs, you understand? Now, according to Chassidus, and here I'm stepping off on a slight limb because there's a lot of contradictions about this. The first proof is called Mamalek Halam. The idea that the Eibishter gets order to the world is Mamalek Halam. The second proof that the Eibishter creates the world from nothing is called Seviv Kalam. The Koyach ain't Seviv. Yeshban called Seviv Kalam. So the Chassidus writes that Goyim can have proof for the Eibish at the level of a Malak Kalam. And the level of Seviv Kalam, and it's not so easy for them. Nilu Chachme Amech Kalahasik. And I'm assuming it means that Aristotle, who could not see the need for Yesh Meyayin. So we didn't have proof for HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the Madrega of Yesh Meyayin. So it was unavailable to him, the Eivish and the Madrega of Seviv Kalam. Now, this is a controversial issue. I have Baruch Hashem children who have grown up enough to argue with their father, and there's nothing in the universe more delightful than to sit by your Shabbos table and argue with your Bachrim about Pshat and Amayim and Chassidus. But this is one of the big discussions I'm having with one of my Bachrim about where Yesh Me'ayin is. This, in my morning, I once made a list of meditations. Someone asked me to list of meditations, this level, this level, this level. And I say the odd man out is the meditation of Yesh Me'ayin. Because in one Ma'im Yesh Me'ayin there's Miyuchas to Atzmus. In another Ma'im Yesh Me'ayin is Miyuchas to Seviv Kalam. And there's even my mother that said the Yesh Me'ayin is Miyuchas to Malachah. My kid is arguing with me. He says, no, a Goy could believe in Yesh Me'ayin also, because there's some my mother that say that Yesh Me'ayin is Malachah. So I'm telling you about the argument with my son, and the argument just last minute Hashem Larichas Yad B'Shem Tevis. Bis Mashiach het kommen und noch Mashiach het kommen und Elam haben und Chayim Nitzchim, so unsere Dinge Gesundheit. But the Riker is, we should continue to talk about Divrei Elokim Chayim. The point is, Goyim know God through proof. The shit in my mother. But there's a very important but, and this is why I'm starting. Proving that there's a God has nothing to do with faith. Nothing. There are many Goyim who are believers. They're Ma'aminim. And they're righteous. They're righteous people. I've met them. They're righteous people. They're good people. And they want to do the right thing. They're sincere people. Their emunah is not because they're so smart and they have truth. And in some cases they are very smart. You know, the presumption that the smarter you are, the harder you have time with faith. And the dumber you are, the easier with faith, has been proven not to be true. I know plenty of dumb people who are heretics. I know brilliant people who believe like children. So what is the difference? And the difference, I'm going to use the cliche, it's called a leap of faith. A leap, a diluk. That's what's called my mother. A jump. To be a man, you have to leap. Meaning, if you're like Avraham Avinu, and every guy is like Avraham Avinu, Avraham Avinu is different than us. Why? We were born believers. Avraham came to God through his mind. And every guy who comes to Hashem to his mind is the same as Avraham Avinu. If you come to the Eibishter through your mind, at some point you have to leave your mind and jump. You're not jumping to something else. You're just jumping to say, I have to stop proving this to myself. I have to stop convincing myself this is true. I need to surrender to it. It's emes. That's a believer. Now, for purposes of full disclosure, the expression a leap of faith was invented by Apikursim, by agnostics, to laugh at believers. The expression leap of faith, it's found in my modem, diluk. But the way the term is used in the secular culture, a leap of faith is meant to be an insult. It's like to tell you it's blind faith. I said, no, it's not blind faith, it's simple faith. And there's a very big difference between being blind and being simple. The expression leap of faith was introduced by so-called smart people to laugh at believers. What's a leap of faith mean? A leap of faith means like this. If I have a series of proofs for a certain thing, yeah? Yeah, the old story, you have the 100 cars and the train. Yeah? So how does the 100th car move? It's very simple. It's attached to the 99th car. When the 99th car moves, the 100th car moves with it. Oh, good to tell it. So how does the 99th car move? It's attached to the 98th car. Yeah? Till you get to the locomotive. You get to the locomotive. This I don't know. She said, what did you prove? He says, 99 out of 100 I explained. Well, that doesn't mean you understand? If a person has a series of proofs for a certain idea, and there's one missing link, there's one proof is missing. Simple logic says every proof after that is not logic, it's faith. It's built on faith. This is how the term is meant in the secular world. A leap of faith means I'm smart, stupid, smart. I came to God, but in the middle, I stopped thinking. That's how they interpret it. How do we interpret it? A leap of faith means your brain gives you the understanding of God, the proof for God, but not the relationship. The relationship with God, to be honest, both by a Jew and by a non-Jew, you find in your neshama, in your conscience, in your humanity, in your B'Tselem Elokim, you're in the image of God. That's where you find it. And at some point, you say to your brain, enough, and you leap. That's a maimin, and it's by a goy the same. A person who comes to God through the mind, if he doesn't surrender his mind, has no relationship with God. He's not a believer. He's a scientist. He's a philosopher. He's no different than somebody else who has a belief system that's based on other principles. It's the same thing. You only have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu if you stop calculating it all the time. If you stop reminding yourself of the math and you have the relationship, that's a mind. So it says in Chassidus, Goyim HaMaminim. Goyim are real believers. Goyim are incredible people. The capacity for the belief of a Goy, and again, who's the prototypical Goy in Torah? When Torah wants to give you a mashal of a Goy, who's the mashal? Eve, Job. Eve was a Navi. He was a prophet. Shechina Shalsa Olav. God spoke to him. See, and he was a non-Jew. He didn't have a chelik al kamim al mamish. He was a tselem alakim. Good enough. And there's many Eves. The Gemara says there was many Eves. There could be Eves alive today also. Righteous goyim who don't have a neshama, chelik al kamim al. However, they come to the Eibishter, but their relationship with the Eibishter and the way they live their life is so pure and so refined. To use the Lashon Chazal, whether they have nevuah, they don't have nevuah, Shechina rest, doesn't rest. There's a concept by a non-Jew. The Gemara says this. This you can't blame on the Alter Rebbe, because the Gemara says he was a goy, he was a navi. And by the way, there's a day that holds that Eve lived in the times of Yankov Avinu. And according to that day, one of the people who comes to console Eve, when he has a lot of Torahs, is a fellow named Eliphaz. And a lot of people say that Eliphaz's father is Esav. Esav Arasha had a son named Eliphaz who was supposed to kill Yankov and he didn't. Remember, he took all of his wealth. And Eliphaz was also a Navi. And Shar Salav Shechina, his words are mentioned in Tanakh. And in case you're not yet mispal enough, I want you to know that the Gemara says, Meisha Rabbeinu Kasa Sefer Iyov. The oldest book of Ksuvim is Iyov. Moshe wrote Iyov. Before Yeshua was written, and before Shmuel was written, and before Sheftim was written, and before Malachim was written, and Yirmiyah, Cheskel, and Yeshaya, and Yosef, and Tilim, and Mishlei, and Shirashirim, and Kehelis, and Rus. The oldest Sefer of the Ksuvim is Sefer Iyov. Moshe Rabbeinu. The Gemara says, Moshe Kasa Sefer Iyov. That's how old the book is. And it's written about Goyim. And how high a Goy could reach. A human being who's created B'Tselem Elokim. And this involves Seichel and Emunah. My brain brings me close to the Eibush to Ad Khan till a certain point, and then there's a leap. And then you get to a Yid. By a Yid is another dimension. And this is called Ma'aminim b'nei Ma'aminim. This is the Gemara's expression. We know it from Vata Tetavah. Ma'aminim b'nei Ma'aminim. Believers, the descendants of believers. This is a funny concept. You know, a person passes away, he leaves his children wealth. How do you leave your children faith? Yerusha, Hayerish, Eimid, V'tachas, Avisecha, Yu Banecha. The Chassidus holds, the Torah explains it. But how do you inherit faith? My father's a believer, so I'm a believer. My father's a chassid, so I'm a chassid. No, my father's a chassid, so I'm the son of a chassid. And by Yidden we say, Ma'aminim, Ma'aminim. So how does my father's faith affect on my faith? And the answer we learned 4 weeks ago. When we learned, Ha'aves, Hein, Hamarkova. The Avis were incredibly righteous and very hard-working and totally dedicated to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Al-Kain, Zochu, Lahamshel, Revneim, Achareim, Adelam. They were Zoicha, that every one of their children till the end of time is going to have a nitzitz of Kedusha. Me'eses, Sfir, the Kedusha, Shaba'echad, Me'arba, Elam, Me'esatzilus, B'riya, Yitzir, Asiyah. We're Ma'aminim, Nei Ma'aminim, not because of us, but because of our ancestors. Avraham was given the ultimate gift. And what was the gift he was given? That his children should inherit his emunah, not his wealth. His emunah, he'll inherit his neshama. And therefore, by a yid emunah is a different thing. It doesn't have to pass through necessarily the screen of the mind. It's straight to the neshama. Which of course brings us to a great and important conversation which the Rebbe spoke about by Rabbim Kama Palmen. And the teichen of the conversation is that in Sovietsky Soyuz, in Soviet Russia, they used to scream that when you teach little children, you have to teach them simple concepts. What's a simple concept? 1 + 1 is 2 is a simple concept. God is a very complicated concept. They don't understand it. When you teach little children concepts they can't understand, you brainwash them. Because they can't process them intellectually, they can't question them, they can't think about it critically. So don't teach them about God, God forbid. Chas v'shalom, and when they'll be grown, then you'll introduce the idea, maybe Efsher. And of course, Lubavitch, the Rebbe, Hasidus, Yiddishkeit screamed, Leimet an Aleph, the first thing you teach a child is there is a God. So they said to the Rebbe, why is this not brainwashing? Take a child who doesn't understand Surah Aleph, and you tell him that God created the world, he doesn't understand what the word God means, he doesn't understand what the word creation means. He doesn't even really understand what the word world means. He barely understands what the word me means. I. And you tell him that there's a God who created the whole universe, from nothing into something. So the answer is, when you teach a little child about the Eibishter, the reason it's not brainwashing him is because you're giving him something that's already his. That's the answer. Now where's the logic? There's no logic. There's ma'amin and b'nei ma'amin. To a Jewish child, the Eibishter is natural like breathing air. It's in his neshama. In his neshama. Now you could argue that maybe by Goyim it's also like this, so that's a good discussion to have. And I'm not going to, ich vergin sie mit dem ganzen Herzen. But by Yidden, the Gemara, Paskins, every single Jew is a Maimin ben Maimin, Maminim b'nei Maminim. Our faith is based on the faith of our fathers. So we approach Chinuch, we approach raising our children from Amunah to Seichel, not from Seichel to Amunah. In other words, Avraham Avinu's life is the exact opposite of how we raise our children to live. Avraham Avinu started with his mind, and he went from his mind to his soul. We go from the soul to the mind. And we guard the soul, we tend the soul, we give the soul such gentleness. And we protect it so long that chas v'shalom, the mind should not be able to fog the emunah and the neshama. And we delay and we delay and we delay till the emunah is very strong, and then the mind is only supporting the emunah, and not chas v'shalom questioning it and bringing doubt into it and bringing coldness into it and bringing pessimism into it and all the other wonderful things that Elam Hazeh is famous for. Because by a Yid, emunah is natural. Maminim ne mamim. A Jew is a believer, the son of a believer. So emunah always means the same thing, whether you're a Yid or a non-Yid. Emunah means I let go. I have a connection, a yachas, a relationship. Not there is a God. I have a God. And when life is good, I say Baruch Hashem. When life is not so good, I also say Baruch Hashem. When I need something, I say, give me. Remember Sydney? He's all of Hashem, you know that. During COVID, there was a Jew in Kranite, his name was Shmuel HaKoyin. I voted as a candidate for Tzaddik Nister if I ever met one. He lived on Empire Boulevard. Everybody knows Sydney. Rappaport. Sydney, he was a Kohen. Moshe Rabbeinu is my uncle, Anarchen is my Zayde. He would quote Gemaras left and right, and he didn't know anything like it. He was on Amarat. He used to quote Gemaras, based on Sydney. And he used to say to me, say to the Rebbeinu Shalom, Tati, give me. Don't say give me $1 million. Say give me $1 million. This was his language, Tati. He says, you'll ask him, you'll get. And if you don't get, it's because you didn't ask. That's like he would come to every Shalom Zucker. He never missed. As long as his guf led him, we lost. He was Sydney. He was very much a part of this neighborhood. Sydney was a neshama. Sydney was a very special neshama. It was an incredible soul. He passed away a year ago. I don't know exactly when, but he's one of the victims of COVID. And he would say, Tati, give me, don't ask for $1 million. Don't ask for $1 million. Dare him. And if he didn't give you, it's because you didn't ask. But you have to ask to Ben Aviv. Don't come like a smart guy. Come like a child who comes to his father and say, Tati, you have so much money. Give me some of it. That's how he would verbring with me and everybody else would verbring. And every Shalom Zucker, he would verbring it. Somebody would argue with him. He had his Mishigas, and he was He was a character. Effects of a chef with Mashiach. I don't need Mashiach. I need Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is my uncle. Moshe Rabbeinu. So in Crown Heights, to say Moshe Rabbeinu is more important than Mashiach was not exactly so hot. So he had a lot of he was a character, but he was a neshama. He was a soul, a Yiddish neshama. Verstehst? Odos is a Yid. It's a mine and then mine. So I'm repeating myself again. Emunah always means the same thing. You make a jump. But by a goy, the Amorim say, you start with the mind and then you make a jump. The fact that my father's a believer is not good enough for me. I have to make my own jump. And again, are there goyim by whom this Maimen ben Maimen ich vergin sie mit dem ganzen Herzen? It's not going to take away from what makes Yidden to say that they're goyim whose parents are so devout that their children also. But by Yidden, the biggest Rasha is a Maimen ben Maimen. Every Jew, a Kalsha Bakam and a Peishi Yisrael, whatever, as a Yid, there's an album, it's a teres, a pinta Yid, right? What are the words? Kedusha, Chochmeh, and Seif. And because of this, he's a Maimen ben Maimen. Not only he's a believer, but that the nature of his faith doesn't have to go through the step. He doesn't have to work it out for himself. It's inherent. He's a believer, the descendant of a believer. This is the Taicha Muna. This is the Taicha Muna. And like I've said many times, if you have to, I teach Vatal Tzavach, and that's the Chunz 11. Right? What is the translation of the word Amunah? Translation of the word Amunah means a connection to God that's not about reason. That's what it means. A relationship with Hashem, even though I cannot see Him, and I cannot hear Him, and I cannot smell Him, and I cannot taste Him, and I cannot touch Him, and I can't experience Him. I have a relationship with Him. That's Amunah. And Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, it's up Perek Man Beis, in chapter 42 in Tanya, it's Moshe Umnus. Umnus means you're good at it. It's your profession. That this Amunah, this connection to the Eibishter, which is higher than reason, I'm good at. And it's true by a non-Jew, and it's true by a Jew, and by a Jew there's this mile of Mamin and Bein Mamin. But there's another thing. Everything I just said is setting up one more point. The other point is that you learn in Chasidus. Okay, I'm going to stop. I'll do this next time in Mitzvah Hashem. Okay, I'm talking almost an hour. I was thinking I could chaparain the ganze Emun in 1 week. We'll talk about Emun next week. Okay?